Hey guys, welcome to the contents of this package show where we do a little bit of a deep dive into our latest sample packs. This week we dropped the Excursion Sample Pack, which was executive produced by our own John Smythe. Smythe, how you doing, man?
Doing good, man. It's been a minute since I been behind the mic like this.
Yeah, man. It's this is nice because this is kind of the beginning of a little bit of a podcast type network thing that we have been working on for a little while now. That's finally seeing the light. We got bogged down by the splice releases that kind of had us busy for about a month and a half, I guess, maybe 2 months. And
Honestly, I don't know if everyone knows. I feel like even back when I got hurt in October, it kind of slowed
yeah,
everything down.
yeah. So for
Um,
those that didn't know, Smythe actually he actually had a knee injury, and that was a lot of the reason why the podcasting slowed down. So,
yeah,
but it's all good because I think there was a purpose for that. Now we're going to have actually three podcasts all together. This one, the contents of this package show, which is going to come out every week that we drop a pack. But then also the regular Soul Surplus podcast, which is going to have an extremely special guest for next week's episode. Can't wait for that. And then also
extremely special.
extremely special, like low key. I still don't even know how we pulled that off, but
Yeah,
but also on top of that, we also have a new show called Liner Details, and that's a show with myself and Zari where we are talking about anything that has to do with sampling. So recent news, things, new albums, and talking about some of the really great samples that are on some of the new albums, and even kind of going back and talking about some of our old favorite compositions and how they were flipped, and helping to shape the course of the music industry. But for now, man, let's jump right into this pack, man. So the Excursion Sample Pack dropped today. It is what would you consider this? You would consider this somewhere in between Afrobeat and Caribbean. We kind of didn't want to go super hard with Afrobeat because there's no drums in this pack, right?
yeah. I would say it was mostly influenced by soukous music,
Mm-hmm.
um, which is it sounds a lot like Afrobeat. It has a little less swing to it, but it's very upbeat, guitar driven. But of course, there is Caribbean influence. There's some compa influence in there, which is a Haitian type of music. Um, yeah, and Afrobeat and all of that. There's everywhere from the Caribbean to West Africa,
Mm-hmm.
all of that.
Yeah, it definitely gave us beach vibes. We're going into the summer, you know what I'm saying? It's starting to get hot. Like yesterday it was like 90 degrees. And I mean this kind of just felt like that it was the perfect pack to kind of go into the summer with. The good thing is we had so many requests to do world music for like the last 2 years, and this
Hmm.
is our first foray into that as a company. Most people probably don't know, but I mean, this kind of is your wheelhouse, man. You reside um in this area quite a bit outside of the sample packs, just in your regular music listening, right?
Yeah, yeah. It honestly started when uh, I would go and visit my brother's church in Brooklyn. They're a Haitian church, and not only do they do compa music and they do zouk, but they pretty much do everything. They do Latin, they do African, and I would visit on Labor Day. For those of you guys that know, Labor Day in Brooklyn is just that's just straight up like that's for Caribbeans. That's their day to wear the flag. You could go to any block in Brooklyn on Labor Day, and
Mm.
somebody is repping their flag. Like 90% of people, and I would be up there on Labor Day, and I have to play all these different kinds of music, and it really challenged me. Um, but I also really found it was really a discovery of what the guitar could do, and really just different kinds of music and yeah, it was a really colorful world that I opened myself up to, and yeah, just been exploring a whole bunch of different things ever since.
Yeah. I'm most excited to see the possibilities of the folks that buy our packs. I really want to see, because it's real easy for us as a company to kind of get locked in the traditional soul sound, and whether that's like the late '70s or mid '60s type sound. It's real easy for us. That's kind of our wheelhouse. That's what people know us for. But it's nice every now and again we're able to do this type of pack, which is kind of against the grain. But it's crazy because it's still mad soulful. You know what I'm saying? But it's just kind of outside of our wheelhouse, and I'm really really looking forward to seeing what some of the folks that follow us and support this brand, what they come up with, because this is not something. I mean, I guess you could kind of just throw this on and loop it because it's technically that type of music. It's you almost enjoy the fact that there's not like a whole bunch of dancing around as far as progressions and stuff like that. It's really, this is probably the most that we'd like people who buy our stuff, please loop this as much as possible. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And the other thing too is it's still 70s. It's still late 70s.
Yes, very true.
It's still 80s. One of my favorite, not even my favorite, probably everyone knows Fela, Fela records. The guitar tones on those records, they're clean, but they're so tight. And because they're old recordings, they still have that tape quality to them. So yeah, like that soul is still there. That late 70s sound is still in the guitars, is still in the bass. And I really wanted to make sure that I captured that. But again, like you said, it's very loopable. The BPMs are between like 120 and 130. But the cool thing is that when you slow them down, I'm not going to give you guys I'm not going to tell you guys how to sample this stuff,
right.
but yeah, it's just like sampling old Afrobeat records,
Right. So all in all, so you were the executive producer on this, and I want to say you've probably asked me maybe 2 or 3 times over the last year, like, Wes, when are we going to do some world music? Wes, when are we going to do some world music? And I'm like,
yeah,
it's been more of a timing thing for us. I'm more on the business end of the company, and you guys are kind of in the trenches when it comes to, anything that has to do with the music. Were there any specific albums that you could call back to, that were like a heavy influence? Because you were telling me about one in particular. I think you might have showed it to me, and I was like, "Wow, this is awesome."
Yeah, there's a few. I would say definitely "Zombie" by Fela. There's a group called Suku's Force One. I think they're from Zimbabwe. They're like I still don't know how I found this record. I think it's like 90s Sukus.
Okay.
It was like, I think it came out in the 90s. It seems like they're super underground, but that was a really cool, really influential album. Of course, a lot of compa. I really love Sugar Combo. Man, there's a lot of them. System Band, I love. Of course, Sweet Mickey. There's so many artists, and it's really just for me hearing these guitar players, how their tones really don't change that much.
Right.
They're using a clean tone, maybe usually some delay, depending on the genre. Like a lot of Haitian guitarists use chorus. A really fast chorus. African music, they'll use sometimes a slower chorus. But the playing is so percussive, it almost sounds like another drum.
Right.
But it drives the music, so the music is moving so much.
Right.
Like the funny thing about Excursion, I know this is getting away from the question. I was just reminded though, there's not too many minor chords.
Yeah, I noticed that. I did notice that, which is like minor chords are like our bread and butter. Not all the time, but when you play most of the '70s love ballads kind of reside in the minor scale primarily,
Yeah.
especially when my man is talking about getting the love of his life back. He's
Hmm.
more of in a sulky, depressive mode, which
Yeah.
minor keys go hand in hand with. But um, what particular instruments were because you have like what 5 or 6 guitars um in your studio at any given time?
Yeah. So funny enough, there wasn't. I probably used in total 4 instruments in all for this pack. Um, Absolutely used the roadie.
Oh,
The
you had
roadie
to use the
is
roadie for this one.
yeah. Oh yeah, it's perfect.
Hmm.
Um, I used I used like a DX7 sound, that vintage digital piano sound that you hear on like the 80s, 80s records. And then a Fender Stratocaster, just for that bell sort of tone, that bell like um very percussive, compressed kind of sound.
Right.
Um and then Fender Jazz Bass with
Okay.
flat wounds on it for like a old school kind of a woofy super round sound that you hear in a lot of African music.
Hmm. Yeah, going through the pack yesterday. I think you sent the pack to us yesterday. Um, I noticed how round and wide the bass was in comparison to a lot of our other packs where the bass can kind of be pushed into the background just a bit.
Yeah.
It was really nice to hear the bass right at the forefront without overpowering the whole composition, obviously. But um, what with that specifically, is that sound specifically just from the bass guitar, or are you getting that sound through plugins and whatever type of hardware that you're sending that through?
Yeah, so the bass is naturally the flat wound strings on that bass. Um, they naturally give it that round sound. It's really like a '70s kind of sound. Um, it's also yeah. So what I did, I think it's probably even easier if I just tell you like the settings and
Yeah,
what I
sure.
did because it's naturally round, but you the flat wound basses or sorry flat wound strings really give you more of an attack in your low end,
Hmm.
and what I wanted wasn't really attack. I wanted more of sort of like a flat kind of thing. It's hard to describe.
No, I understand.
um
You didn't want it to be like super punchy, like
right,
right,
I wanted it to sing
right,
because that's how African music like soukous music and afrobeat, um the bass isn't really boom ba boom boom ba boom.
right,
It's more of do 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 do,
right, right.
So what I did was I took a lot of the mid range out. So I have the bass going through a 1073 preamp and EQ,
Hmm.
and I love that 1.6 in the mid range.
Hmm.
That's my favorite EQ point, but I had to EQ that out because that's gonna like make the bass really punch through, and that's where a lot of that the really what makes the bass hurt in that upper range. I EQ that out.
Okay.
Um, I I also had it going through a pull tech just to kind of eliminate all of that noise up top.
Hmm.
I put the cut the cut knob on the pull tech at uh three kilohertz, and then I cut it all the way just to get all that extra noise out at the top.
Now, when you're talking about the noise at the top, are you just talking about the natural noise coming from the bass, or are you talking about the noise that you're getting with your finger sliding across
Well,
the strings?
the funny thing is with flat wound strings, you get less of that noise. I
Mm,
could run my hands all across the strings,
mm,
and you wouldn't really get finger noise.
gotcha.
Um, it's really just there's noise there, you know.
Hmm.
Even if it's a little bit of noise,
Hmm.
I guess for me, I can kind of hear it,
Right.
and I really wanted it to be not quite sub like, but I just wanted the bass to sit in that pocket
Right.
so that the guitars have that room to just dance on top.
Right. But it does have like a sub type quality though. Like that was the first
Right.
thing that I noticed. As a matter of fact, I think the thing that gave it away especially was like when you're listening. I always do the ear test with the iPhone, and that's usually like the giveaway. So like when we're uploading, and we recently just switched to uploading the social via a third party, so we're not using our phones anymore. But it was very interesting because like with the two particular previews that we dropped Monday and Tuesday of this week, I noticed that in neither of those I could hear the bass at all, which is not normal. You know what I mean?
Right.
Even on an iPhone speaker, we can usually hear it. And so it wasn't like that was one of those where you have to either have a sub readily available, speakers that can pick up that frequency, or you had to have, earbuds or whatever, headphones to be able to hear that. And I think that might be the first, maybe not since like the DX7 pack or the 7XD pack or whatever we called it the 7XD pack, but where we were a little bit more sub bassy, but it was just like a nice change up, and yeah, man, that's even some of that is the part where I was saying like I'm really looking forward to hearing what the folks that buy our stuff do with this particular pack, because I mean even just the bass line, like I was listening to it, and I don't even produce like that anymore, but I was listening to it, I was like, man, what I could do with that bass line.
Yeah.
Just to stretch, and because it's so warm and wide, like you could stretch it out if you needed to sample it, and you just get like a really good tone.
Well, the other cool thing is because I wanted to model it after 70s bass. A lot of records in the 70s, there's not much underneath 50 hertz. So with all of the vintage stuff, I really started high passing the bass up to about like maybe 50 or 60. So if you want to put an 808 under there and really, really double up on your bass. So if you're doing something a little more modern sounding, you can fit your 808s under there. Cause I high passed, actually pretty extreme, like I think 48 dB, the 48 dB setting on the high pass filter, up to like 50 hertz. So, I mean, there's still a lot of bass there and it's still really round, but the bass is literally from 50 hertz, maybe to about 500. And I did a little cutting around 250.
Okay.
So the bass is like just straight up like in that pocket,
right?
And it's just moving. So you can put your 808s in there. You can put your synth pads, whatever you want to do in there. The bass is just gonna. That's the beauty of flat wound strings,
right?
It just sits under the music perfectly.
And that's such a good segue right into, one of the best things about being able to buy from us now is, I think this was going back to. I think this was the top of the year when we started making the melodic loops available and the one shots available. That's like the best part about it is, so you're absolutely right. Cause we did take that into consideration. Like, most of these guys that are using our stuff, they're not really boom bap guys all the time. These guys are using electronic drums. And if they're using a sub bass / 808 kick or whatever, or 808 bass, they're going to need that room for that to fit right in there. And a pack like this, like, you get the melodic loops and you're able to kind of, let's say like you just even sub the bass out completely, you should be able to get like that's just going to take it even further, if you really want to push your 808 on that.
Yeah. It reminds me of More Life by Drake, that album with all the, the Caribbean.
Yeah, man.
All the Caribbean influence music. It still has that thump. It feels like a Drake record. But that island feel is still there because there's room for the other stuff to dance around. I was, really keeping that in mind, when making this.
Yeah, this particular pack, I was thinking on the way into the office today, I was like, I have a feeling, here it is, like our bread and butter is, Port Rich and, what I'm saying, Cool Breeze and those types of packs. I have a feeling that this is going to be the pack that we hear on a bigger record faster because I feel like that this is more of a sound. This is probably the most modern, even though it's a throwback sound, but the way that current and modern producers are producing now, you'll probably actually hear this sound faster than you'll hear a 70s soul sample on a big record.
Yeah. I really honestly can't wait. Yeah. that's the really dope part is that we're especially coming up on the summer, we're really in that time where people are starting to go back to these faster BPMs. They're going back to these Caribbean rhythms, Jamaican and Latin and reggaeton influenced stuff. It's gonna be it's just gonna be really dope to see how people use this.
What particular in this particular pack is there anything reminiscent, since we're talking about modern producers, is there anything in today's music, maybe in like the last 6 months to a year, that you think that this calls to? Like obviously you had like, I think the biggest joint that I could think about with this type of flair, but it was a little bit more on the Latin side, was Meek's record. What was that record called? Uptown? Yeah, Meek's record, Uptown. That was like the last like Latin Caribbean type joint that I could think of off the top of my head, but I feel like that there's more. Cardi had the I Like It Like That. That was but that was Latin too.
Yeah.
Yeah, Zari's telling me that YG had a joint on his latest record.
And what's his name too? Montana, French Montana. Even though I think that was last year.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. Zari said the YG joint was called Go Local.
Okay. But the funny thing about those records, those are still being driven by VSTs. There's nothing wrong with VSTs. But it just does something different for the record when you're hearing real guitars, like nothing that's going to be quantized.
Right.
But it's still upbeat and it's still simple enough for people to sample, and they can still have a human feel on their record.
Right.
But be able to add those 808s. That's why this is really dope to me, because you can really take it there, like you said, make a big record with some of these samples. And but yeah, it's gonna have a different feel. It's gonna have, if it's human,
Yeah. Straight up. And that was even like the one thing, and I'm not trying to disparage Meek's record, but like that Uptown record, that horn was not real, and I was just like, y'all couldn't have found like a real horn player just to play that one lead on the whole record. Like, would it cost you like $500 to find somebody? You could have called Chris, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And he could have played that. But yeah, man, I'm really excited to hear again, just what everybody's able to come up with. It's been a really exciting time for us as a company, just being able to expand the palette just a bit. And we didn't put any percussion or any drums on this particular pack because a lot of times when we do a pack, if it's brand new or if it's like a newer type sound, we're kind of testing just to see if this is something that the general public is going to gravitate towards. And so I'm looking forward to, with this being our first offering of world music, the next time we do a world record, especially if this one does as well as we think it's going to do, we're definitely going to double down on the percussive elements, because that's just going to be just mad icing on an already delicious cake. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Super delicious.
Yeah. So especially if you get Pudge, we get Pudge back at Gradwell to do what he does. It's just going to be problems.
Yeah. It's going to be wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, one of the things I was going to say about this pack was, this was actually a little bit one of the more difficult packs for me to make.
And it doesn't sound like it at all, by the way.
Oh, thank you, man. Thank you. Well, yeah, that's the hard part is making it, not just playing the parts, but making them feel right, making them have that spirit, that lighthearted, that lighthearted move to them, and making them danceable. A lot of those parts, if you're not used to playing it, for me, like when I start playing world music and different genres, I have to warm my brain up to doing these parts and get my fingers used to them. So that being said, yeah, I really hope you guys like this, because it was a little bit of work creating everything. So
Yeah, this the one, you know, you come out of it, you got mad blisters and your brain is
y-
fried, you know what I'm saying, from trying so hard.
yep,
And then that
yeah.
John sells like 3 copies and it's just like, gosh dang it.
Yeah, no, we're going for 3 million,
Yeah.
not three.
Straight up. Straight up. Straight up. Yeah, man. Well, listen, you did a phenomenal job. You know, we appreciate you just sitting down and letting the folks know some of the ins and outs and the thought process of this. We're looking forward to doing this on a weekly basis too, man, just because, a description in the byline, on the store just doesn't do it enough justice, in my opinion. And even sometimes when we do video content, we can't have like a half hour video talking about, what buttons that you used and, what I'm saying, what dials that it doesn't translate as well. So just to be able to kind of hear, straight from you, the thought process, some of your inspirations, I just think that, that our followers and listeners are definitely going to, fall in love with this new segment, man.
Yeah, guys, we're back. So
Like, seriously, I know we said that on the last one. It was funny because we said that on the last one, and then like 2 days later, you blew your knee out. And I was like, Smythe got me out here lying to all the people that follow us. But yeah, man. But yeah, go ahead and head over to soulsurplus.com. The Excursion Sample Pack is available now in a full download format, melodic loops format, and melodic one-shots format. We're out here to give you guys as much flexibility as possible, and hope you guys enjoy. We'll see you next time.
thank you, guys.